I think they go with stereotypes.
Yeah. They're just sort of
Just whatever
their
argument
quick,
they're proposing.
yeah, their quick understanding of it without a deep analysis.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to be careful with that. You got to be careful with that, right?
Down to earth. He's now in charge of the Walter Bradley Center for Natural and Artificial Intelligence. Which is kind of interesting, something that Discovery Institute started.
Yeah, we are going to start about now.
All right, guys, let's get started.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Reasonable Faith. We are quite comfortably through the second half of the semester, so very good. This Saturday is this conference in Saginaw, which is going to be exciting. It's about 9 to 5:30, and it's about an hour's drive away. We can get here free, but anybody who'd like to go, it's probably worth it to share a ride. I have a Discord announcement about it, and so far I'm the only one who apparently knows he's going. So anybody who's interested in this conference, there's information about how to register for it, free. It's like I've said it before, it's with Eric Hernandez and company. And just please put a reaction on that announcement that I included in the Discord if you are coming, and we will kind of coordinate together on how to get a ride and share that, because there probably won't be enough to justify like anything big or multiple rides, but it would be nice to save some gas for some people. So if that's interesting to you, please partake. Tonight we're going to Steak and Shake. Other than that, tactics is one of my favorite things to talk about, just because it has affected me a lot in my conversations with people who are skeptical or who are curious, and it's made things a lot more fluid, and we have an excellent person to talk about it with us tonight, so take it away, Steve Lee.
Thanks for having me. So we're going to be talking about the Columbo tactic. And it's sort of nice because I'm literally not making any claim whatsoever. And so I will not take any questions. And I will not defend anything, and I'm just going to be showing you a tool. Essentially, it's a tool, is what it is. And it's a tool that anyone can use, no matter what perspective you come from, what religious tradition or non-tradition, that you might come. It would be a tool that anyone can utilize, and not just in a religious context, but any kind of context itself. Now, that being said, I'm going to make a disclaimer. All my examples are going to come from an evangelical Christian perspective, and then you might disagree with my examples, and I will not entertain any disagreements with my examples, because the examples are to illustrate the point of the tool, and that's what I want to focus on. Does that make sense? And that way I really don't have to do anything, it's going to be great. And if you don't like it, you can leave because they're not paying me anything. All right, so anyways, sort of like teaching at PCA. Yeah, you give pretty much nothing. All right, so anyways, I don't know why I called it boldness in everyday conversations, but be bold. It sounds very Christian churchy, doesn't it? You got to be bold, All right, but I want to start with a video clip to help us understand what this tool that has come to be called the Columbo tactic.
I want to take another question. There's a gentleman in the red shirt back there. He's had his hand up for a while. Come up to the microphone.
My question is for Deepak and the bishop. Now, you stated before that all belief is a cover-up for insecurity.
Sort of looks like me, the horn-rimmed glasses and everything. Brilliant guy. Seriously. When you show up on Oprah, you must be brilliant. So I'm waiting for the call. So, but apparently in this ABC panel discussion, Deepak had said earlier that belief is a cover-up for insecurity. All right, and it was a real quick clip, so I hope you listen fast. And then Santa Claus comes up to the microphone. He totally looked like Santa Claus, didn't he? Right? Red sweater and the beard, and then he goes to the mic and he says, earlier, you said that belief is a cover-up for insecurity. And he says, yeah. And he says, do you believe that? And of course, Deepak said, sure. And he just walks off the stage. And everyone's laughing, and Deepak's like, what just happened? What just happened? I mean, this guy's not stupid. I mean, he's got like a medical degree. He actually has a medical degree. I mean, you're not stupid when you get a medical degree. Now, you might be stupid to get a philosophy degree, because you got to be sort of stupid to go into that kind of thing because you're not getting anything out of it. So, does anything exist? Do I know anything? I don't know. But in medical, you can actually make money and show up on Oprah. All right. So, anyways, that is an example of the Columbo tactic. Notice that Santa Claus, he didn't state anything. He asked a question. And that is the tactic. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next week. You just ask questions. That's it. That's the Columbo tactic. All right, now why is it first? So let's sort of tease it apart because Alan would never invite me back again, if I didn't actually say some more stuff, or maybe you wouldn't ask me back. I don't know. So, all right, why is it called the Columbo tactic? This is sort of dangerous for this crowd, especially the college students, because y'all are like, who's Columbo? But Alan knows who Columbo is. You know who Columbo is. Who knows who Columbo is? There you go. There's my guys. You know who Columbo is? You don't have friends, do you? You watch a lot of TV. All right, so who's Columbo? Do you know who Columbo is?
He's like a detective dude. He used all that.
Yeah. So it was a TV show, I think in the 70s, maybe early 80s. They had some movies.
See the movies show up?
You can. Look, all you just go to Roku or Freevee, and they're airing it all the time, because, it's like part of public, I don't know what you call it. It's like just anyone can download it for free now and watch it, right? And of course, as you know, crime drama, big genre on TV. And this was a real popular one in the 70s where this guy named Columbo, he would go around and ask questions is what he would do. And he just said, can I ask you a question? Right? And he wore this trench coat and the like. And the key to this tactic is just like Columbo said, it's carefully selected questions, just like Santa Claus at the ABC panel discussion. You just got to ask the right questions. Now, this is not original to me. I did not come up with this tactic. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I'd be actually, on a speaking circuit making money, or doing something like that. It actually comes from a guy named Greg Koukl, who runs a ministry out in California called Stand to Reason, and he wrote a book called Tactics. In fact, so I'm doing this so I can't be sued for being like plagiarizing, And in fact, I just had to put in my dissertation and like copy leaks, it's sort of like turn it in, but it's like even fancier, and then make sure I didn't plagiarize. Yeah, I'm not going to graduate. So, but anyways, no, I'm okay.
This is live stream.
So, yeah, it's okay, Dr. Kuhn. It's okay. All right. So it's carefully selected questions. And since I didn't come up with it, I'm just going to have Greg Koukl explain it, right? This is great. I just show videos. I don't even have to talk.
Now, this first tactic is one that I call the queen mother of all tactics. It's the tactic I use more than any other. It's a very, very effective tactic when combined with other tactics. It's the simplest tactic imaginable to stop a challenger in his tracks and to turn the tables and to get him thinking. It's an almost effortless way to put you in the driver's seat. And I call it the Columbo tactic. Now, you remember Lieutenant Columbo. He's that detective on TV. He's got that certain way about himself. He's got this old trench coat he wears, looks like he slept in it. Maybe he did. He's got that stump of a cigar, right? And a little pad of paper. But he's never got a pencil. He's always got to be digging around for his pencil. He can't find it anywhere. And he walks around the crime scene scratching his head, looking kind of stupid. I mean, this guy looks stupid, but he's stupid like a fox. He looks like he can't think his way out of a wet paper bag, but he's got a plan. And at some point, you'll see him. He does that. He'll be walking around totally befuddled, scratching his head, thinking. And at some point, he stops, and he says something like this. I don't know. There's something about this thing that bothers me. Do you mind if I ask you a question? You know how he does that, right? And he gets his answer back. Oh, yeah, you're very intelligent. One more thing. And then he one more tings them to death, right? Question after question after question. And people get annoyed. He says, I know I'm driving you crazy, but I can't help myself. It's a habit. And this is a habit that you ought to get into. The key to the Columbo tactic is using carefully selected questions to disarm the other person and to productively advance the conversation. Listen, if you don't know where to go in any particular circumstance, you find yourself stonewalled, just ask a question. Never make an assertion when a question will do. Don't start preaching at somebody right away. Try to find some way to advance your point by using questions instead. And with a little planning and a little practice, this can become second nature.
All right, so as he said, the key to the Columbo tactic is asking. Yeah, that's the participatory section of the class, all right? I'm going to do it one more time. The key to the tactic is asking questions. All right, I feel like I'm a teacher. All right, so the Columbo tactic has several advantages, right? And several advantages are, one, it's interactive, okay? It actually invites the other person into the dialogue, all right? Have you ever been in a conversation where you're talking, and then when you're done talking, they're talking, and you're just waiting your turn to talk, and then when you're talking, they're just waiting their turn to talk, and you're not really talking to each other, you're just talking past each other, right? You're not getting anything done, maybe you got to say something, maybe like you hear the sound of your own voice, but you're actually not being very productive, quite honestly, is what's going on. All right, it's interactive, and it invites people into the conversation, is what it does. Secondly, there's no preaching involved. There's for our Christians in here, right? Or when I do talk to my high school students, I always liken it to when your parents are, what do? You tune them out until they're done lecturing at you, right? And so if you don't like being lectured at, then don't do it to someone else, right? Or don't preach at them, itself. There's no preaching involved with asking questions. And of course, sometimes you can't preach to someone. Now look, if I want a good sermon, I like preaching, I go to church on Sunday morning. That's where I go for preaching. But I don't even like being preached at one-on-one, and that's what my wife does to me. So hopefully she's not watching. All right, so anyways, so don't do it. If you don't like being done to you, don't do it to them. Another reason that it's good, there's no preaching involved, a lot of the jobs that you're going to take or you might even be in, there's going to be no proselytation clauses in your contract. But you are allowed to ask questions because there's no proselytizing going on. You're just asking questions is what you're doing. And you can make a lot of headway without stating your case. You actually don't have to know a lot about the topic in order to actually engage in the discussion effectively if you know what questions to ask. And it shifts the burden of proof on the other person is what it does. And that's the most powerful thing about the Columbo tactic. Instead of assuming the burden of proof, you shift the burden of proof on them. You make them bear the burden. Make them do all the work. Why would I want to do all the work when they could do all the work? And I actually came across the Columbo tactic by accident, the power of the Columbo tactic by accident. I remember my father-in-law called me up one day and he says, "Hey, you want to go to the Dallas Maverick basketball game?" And I go, "Why would I want to do that? I don't really care about the Mavs, And he says, "Well, we're going to be in a box seat." I said, "Why would I be in a box? I'm in a box at home. I can watch it off." No, a box seat is where, you can watch the game and it's really comfortable seats, and there's TV monitors everywhere, and they're playing so-and-so. I have no idea who they're playing, And then he said something that caught my attention. He said, "They're going to have free food." And I said, "I'm in," And here's the deal. What was going on is the bank that his company banked with, they had box seats and they would go around and take their clients to the seats. And his company was pretty small, at least his department was small. So he asked his son-in-law to come, is what he did. But he said free food. And I said, "You're telling me there's going to be stadium nachos for free all night long?" And he says, "Yes." And I'll tell you what, I love, who likes stadium nachos? They are amazing. I don't care. It doesn't matter what game, win or losing, it's good. Do you have them with jalapenos? Absolutely, you have them with jalapenos. So I walk in to this box and I'm like, "Dude, this is freaking better than my house." I didn't realize this existed because I'm on a teacher salary, And so I walk in and I see the buffet. It's not just stadium nachos. It's hot dogs, it's hamburgers, It's all you can eat, food and drink. And I'm like, I hope we go into overtime. I didn't watch the game at all. I'm just like eating. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to gorge myself. This is a freaking amazing. And then, about halfway through the first quarter, the banker's going around saying hi to people. And I know he's going to come around to me. And I'm like, what am I going to say? I'm the son-in-law eating your food. I contribute nothing to your bank, but I'm going to take your money, And I'm like, what am I going to say to this guy? And he comes up and he shakes my hand. What's your name, Steve? I go, what's your name? And he goes, whatever his name. I don't really know what his name is. Have you ever been in those conversations where you have exhausted everything you want to say, and they say, and it's just that awkward pause?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly like that. That's what happened. And he looks at me and he says, well, what do you do? Which is a real common question to ask, because my job is my identity. Seriously, anyone could do it. You ever heard the old adage about teaching? Those that can't do, teach. But those that can't teach PE. All right, so anyways, thanks for laughing. This side, y'all pretty much suck. These are good. This is good material. I'm thinking she's like on her phone in the back. It's absolutely ridiculous. Probably doing her homework or something. All right, got her earphones on. Something I said. And I'm just playing. All right. So, anyways, that's what I do. I got to keep students' attention. And she looks like embarrassed now. But anyways, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, he goes, what do you do? Now, if you want to end a conversation, just say I'm a teacher. That's not really good. And I return it back at him. I say, well, what do you do? And there's something worse than that. I'm a banker. It's like, that was a very short conversation. And I'm like, dude, just get away. Move away from the nachos. I just want to eat my nachos in peace. And I thought of a question, and that's the key. I thought of a question. And I said, hey, well, how long have you been in banking? He said, 25 years. I said, well, tell me. That's a long time to be in the same, vocation. What's different about banking today than 25 years ago when you started? And it was like sick him to a dog. He got so excited. He's like, well, back when I started, a man's handshake was his bond, but now we got to sign all these contracts and legal forms. And I'm just like eating my nachos, Yeah, this is great, later, he told my father-in-law, your son-in-law, you invite him to any game he wants. He's never invited me back, he thought I was like the bomb. And here's the deal. Being a good conversationalist is not talking. It's asking questions. That's what a good conversationalist is. And so that's the advantage of the Columbo tactic. All right. How do you employ the Columbo tactic? And what I'm going to do now is teach you 3 questions that you ask in conversations. All right. So that way you don't even have to think about the questions. I'm just going to give them to you is what I'm going to do. Here's the 3 questions up front. The first question is, what do you mean by that? The second question is, how did you come to that conclusion? Third question, can you clear this up for me? These are the 3 questions you ask in conversation, right? The first 2, you ask in every conversation. The third one, certain conditions have to apply for you to ask that question. Now, I'm going to unpack these 3 questions and how they work, give examples, you will laugh at my jokes, and then we'll go home early, all right? So, first question, to learn more about what the person believes, you ask, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Now, I'm going to go ahead and let Greg Kokel do the work instead of me, because he's done a great video on this question. What do you mean by that?
Confidence for every Christian. Fear taking for every shepherd.
It's got a good beat, too. good model question is, what do you mean by that, to gather information? All right, now I'll give an example. All right, and I read about this example. I was reading a scholar named N.T. Wright, brilliant British guy, and anyone with a British accent is obviously smart. I mean, it's like by default. All right, until you go to England, you know. But anyways, he really sounds smart. They just do sound smart, don't they? And I was reading a book. I can't even remember what book it was, you know, that I was reading. And he was talking, and he has like a PhD from Oxford or Cambridge, one or the other, and taught at one, and then you know, and they got a degree from the other. I mean, Oxford's a pretty good school. It's not as good as UTD. I mean, come on, you know. But you got to go somewhere. I guess Oxford would do, you know. So he also was a pastor in the Anglican Church. And if you know anything about the Anglican Church in England, well, church attendance is like worse than a Tuesday reasonable faith meeting on October 31st. You know, I mean, seriously, I mean, it'd just be awful. It's just like no one shows up to church in England. But this one Easter Sunday, you know, the attendance exploded and they had to pull out the folding chairs for all 20 people, you know. And so he, you know, giving his best Easter sermon. And as he's preaching, he sees this guy on the front row that's next to his wife, who faithfully came every week. And she probably guilted this guy who was her husband, most likely. And I'm not going to church on Easter by myself. You're coming with me. You know, and that's my best British accent. Okay, sorry. So, and he's just sitting there and he just looks angry. Right? Have you ever seen anyone just look angry? You know, I mean, he's just like angry eyes, you know, like you're looking at me right now. You know, so he just looks mad. And so N.T. Wright gives a sermon. He goes to the back and he's thanking people for coming. And as this guy comes back, he says, "Thanks so much for coming to church. Hope to see you again next week." And he says, "I'm never coming back to church. I'm an atheist." "Oh, happy Easter to you too," you know. So, you know, and now if anyone's got a good argument for God's existence, I think it's PhD Oxford Don N.T. Wright. You know, I mean, seriously. You know, published with Oxford University, you know, brilliant scholar. But N.T. Wright didn't go there, you know. And of course, being, you know, reasonable faith, I'd be like, let's jump into the Kalam argument, or my favorite, the ontological argument that convinces no one, you know, or something like that, because I'm like, I don't care if it convinces you, it's fun, you know, so, but anyways, but he doesn't do that. N.T. Wright says, there you go, all right, my gosh. This is a rough crowd tonight. All right, so anyways, he asked, well, what do you mean by that? And it was like sick him to a dog to this atheist. I'll tell you what I mean by I'm an atheist. There is no God that sits up in the sky like a Santa Claus, like a cosmic killjoy that just wants to send us to hell forever and ever and ever for one of those screw-ups that we do. And of course, N.T. Wright looks at him and goes, "You're right. I don't believe in that kind of God either." And so by asking a question, he was able to dissolve the situation quite quickly, but he got information because this guy had a misconception of God. Yeah, God is a God of wrath and justice, but he's also a God of mercy and forgiveness that's literally going to do everything he can to keep you out of hell, that you literally have to step over his dead body son, the son of his dead body, or his son's dead body to get there to Christ. Right? That's how much he wants to forgive you. He's got to punish sin, right? And it's either you let yourself receive the punishment or you let Jesus receive the punishment, but God will punish all sin, right? Is what's going on. But anyways, that's the first question. What do you mean by that? And you can ask it in different ways. Like, oh, can you explain that differently? You know, I want to understand what you mean. And you want to know what this does? This is one of the things that I've learned, right? And I'm not really good at this. I actually was talking to you about this earlier. I was a student pastor for 3.5 years. And I was horrible. I mean, like, I was a horrible student pastor. People would come into my office, tell me all the problems, and I'd go, "Wow, you're really screwed up. Thanks for coming in." You know, I'd go back and read my books, you know. I lack this thing called empathy, like caring, you know, and the like. I almost feel like David Wood. But anyways, it's probably 3 of you understand what I'm talking about right now. So anyways, one of the things I learned is that when you ask someone a question, and I mean, like, be genuine about it. Don't like being manipulative. You know what you're doing? You're infusing significance into that person. And that's important to do, right? And when you do that, and you ask the question, what do you mean by that? Can you clear that up for me? Can you explain that differently so I can understand? Really listen to them. I mean, really listen to them, and they are going to feel heard and seen, and that's important. Don't try to fix it. Don't launch into something. Just understand where they're coming from. And you know what's going to happen a lot of times? They're going to reciprocate and go, well, what do you think? And now they've given you permission to talk, right? Is what they've done just by asking, what do you mean by that? Right? That's the power of asking questions. And you should ask this over and over and over again in the conversation, not just one time, get it out of the way, and then move on to the next question. Really understand, because sometimes you might not even understand what they're saying. Clarity is preferable to agreement, all right? You want to be clear on what they're saying, and that way you actually know if you actually disagree or not. Now, if you do disagree, and you might actually go to the second question, right? Now, first question, what do you mean by that, is a fact-finding question. The second question, to make them defend their own view, is a fact-defending question. And here, I love this question. This is my favorite. And I always, pull the trigger too early. Can I say that at school? Right? No, I'm sorry. I teach at a high school, and you can't say things like trigger. Or, I live in Garland. Guns are prolific. So I mean, it's absolutely awful. So you can take me out of Garland, but can't take Garland out of me. All right. So, anyways, I mean, seriously, anybody live in Garland? Exactly. You know exactly what I mean. I mean, no one wants to live there. You're trying to get out, but they don't pay me enough. All right. So, anyways, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Sometimes I try to pull the trigger too early and go to this question, which the question is fact defending. And the question is, how did you come to that conclusion? Okay? How did you come to that conclusion? And here you're saying, we live in a Twitter age. Do we even live in a Twitter age anymore? No, we don't. It's X. It's X. I'm so 2022. Sorry. Yeah, I'm out of date. I still read books. X or whatever. I mean, where people love making claims, but they don't know how to defend them. And that's the power of this question. Instead of saying, hey, I'll give an example. Like when someone says, well, I don't think God exists. I don't jump into the Kalam argument or the like. I just say, why not? Why not? Why don't you think God exists? See, that's a version of this question. How did you come to that conclusion? Why don't you think? I want to know. Maybe you got some good reason. Maybe there's something I don't know. I don't want to be ignorant. If you know something I don't, I want to know. And if God actually doesn't exist, then I don't want to believe in him if he actually doesn't exist. I mean, you see how this is going? You're being sincere, being authentic. But I love this question because it makes them bear the burden of proof. So instead of me bearing the burden of proof of showing that God does exist when they don't believe in God, they bear the burden of proof to show that God doesn't exist, where a lot of time it belongs, right, is what it does. So that's how this question works. How did you come to that conclusion? I'll give another example, right? So no surprise, I believe the Bible, right? And I believe it's the Word of God, and the like. And I will periodically come across people that will say, well, the Bible's full of contradictions, okay? And of course, I want to go, no, it's not. And they're going to say, yes, it is. And I'm going to say, no, it's not. And they're going to say, yes, it is. This is a really productive third grade conversation at this point, right? I mean, we're really getting places, but I made the mistake of making a claim instead of asking a question, right? Now, I could jump into it and say, look, I went to seminary. They made me learn Greek and Hebrew. I've read the Bible in Greek and Hebrew. I forgot all my Greek and Hebrew. So, I mean, seriously, I actually, oh gosh, this is awful. I was in seminary in the 8 o'clock hour one semester. I took Hebrew, which reads right to left. And then the 9 o'clock hour, I took Greek, which reads left to right. I didn't know if I was coming or going. Not advisable learning two languages at once. I mean, seriously. I mean, I was the best C+ I ever got. All right, so anyways, I could say, yeah, I've read the Bible in Greek and Hebrew. It's not full of contradictions. But that's just like he said, she said, or, your word against my word, or what have you. So I asked the question, well, can you show me one? See, sometimes you can make the question, this fact-defending question, how'd you come to that conclusion, very specific to the topic they said. All right, this is just the model question. You want to get as specific as you can. And you know what has happened when people say the Bible's full of contradictions, and I say, can you show me one? About half the time they go, I can't think of any, but they're there. I'm like, oh, wow, your intellectual superiority is overwhelming right now. I'm an atheist, you know? No, I don't say that. You think it, but you don't say it, all right? And I don't have to say anything. And look, I'm going to let them save face. I go, well, that's fine. That's okay. Think about it. And if you come up with one, I would like to know what it is. Because if it's full of contradictions, then I'd like to know, right, to what's going on. And so that's how this question works is, how did you come to the conclusion? Another way is, why do you think that's true? What are your reasons to believe that? See, you're making them bear the burden of proof. They're having to actually make evidence for their claim, all right? In fact, this is how we do, rationality, being reasonable. See, we make statements, all right? A little quick side lesson. This is above and beyond your tuition right here, all right? Which is 0. So you make a statement. Statements are true when they correspond to reality. That's actually what truth is. It's true when it corresponds to reality. So for example, like I'm holding a phone in my hand. When that statement represents reality, corresponds, accurately describes, I could say it in a different language, I could write it, doesn't matter, as long as it carries the same propositional content. If it reflects reality or corresponds to reality, then that statement is true, all right? And then making a statement doesn't make it true. A statement corresponding to reality makes it true, all right? And there's statements that are true and you don't know anything about them, like the name of my dog. Anybody know the name of my dog? No? You're not going to guess. Just let's cut to the chase. You're not going to guess. All right, his name is Kipper. You should have known that, because I hate that dog. I can't wait for it to die. All right, so I mean, it's just an awful, awful animal, right? And dogs don't go to heaven, especially Kipper. All right, he is going to hell. 9th level, right there with Lucifer. All right, oh my God, he is an awful dog. Oh, I leave the door open, hoping he runs away. But you know what kind of dog I got? It's a pug. You know, the little dog that looks like a door slammed into its face? He goes out 3 steps and he's like, I can't breathe. I'm like, die already, die. And he just keeps coming back. It's awful. All right, so we're gonna have to delete this from the Facebook page. All right, so anyways, and you know what? Honestly, you know what? Yeah, I mean, Kipper's probably listening right now. He's like, and on top of that, he's deaf. He can't hear. He brings me no joy whatsoever. Why did I buy this dog? Okay, I'm sorry. Why am I talking about? Oh, yeah, just because you didn't know the statement, my dog's name is Kipper, doesn't mean there was no truth to the matter, okay? So you don't have to know the statement for the statement to be true. There's statements out there that are true, and we don't know anything about it, like maybe aliens exist. That's a statement that might be true. I don't know, right? I mean, it could be false, it might be true, but we don't know at that point. We just don't have enough information. And that first statement, that first question, pardon me, what do you mean by that? You know what you're asking them? What is your truth claim? What's your truth claim? What's your claim that corresponds to reality? And I just discovered this 2 years ago. So I taught the corresponds to theory of truth, and then I would teach on Colombo tactic. I went, oh my gosh, this is actually the correspondence theory of truth, and with some epistemology thrown in. You ever heard of epistemology? Sounds like a urinary tract infection. All right. Get it? All right. All right. Guys, this is really good stuff. I mean, I'm telling you, man, this is gold. I could go on the road and make money. I've actually had a professional comedian tell me how to go on the road with my stuff. All right, so I'm thinking about it. You never know. Huh? You would, yeah. Well, you're seeing it right now. It's right now. What are you asking? All right, so anyways, and then the second question, how did you come to that conclusion? This is the justification. This is how you know a statement is true when you provide evidence for it, right? To what's going on. And that's what you're actually doing. You're saying, what are you claiming and how do you now know it's true? Right? Just claiming it doesn't make it true. It corresponds to reality makes it true. How do you know it corresponds to reality? And that's what you're asking with this question. How did you come to that conclusion? All right, the third question, because I think I'm running out of time. All right, yeah. The third question, to uncover a flaw, you begin your question with, can you clear this up for me? Now, before I go into this, you don't always get to ask this question. Right? A couple of conditions have to be met for you to get to this question. All right. So the first question is, what do you mean by that? What's your claim? All right. Clarification, gather information, understand what they're saying. Okay. Clarity. Second question, how do you know that's true? How did you come to that conclusion? What's your justification? What's your reasoning to believe that that statement corresponds to reality? And then when you hear the reasoning, a couple of things could happen. It could be the case they're absolutely right and you need to change your mind. And you wouldn't ask this question, okay? You'd be like, oh, you're right. I don't see anything wrong with your reasoning. I changed my mind. I never thought about it that way. And a second thing that could happen is you're not convinced of it, but you don't see what's wrong with their reasoning. Now, you don't see what's wrong with their reasoning. You still can't ask this question, clear this up for me. You got to go think about it and go figure out what's going on. And then when you see the flaw in the reasoning, you can come back to them and say, hey, we were talking earlier and you said yada, yada, yada. Can you clear this up for me? Or when you just see the flaw in their reasoning, you just say, clear this up for me, right? And what you do is you want to expose the flaw in their reasoning with the question rather than a claim, okay? A question rather than a claim. And there's a couple of reasons you want to do that. Because when you show them what's wrong, you tell them what's wrong, they're not going to readily receive it. Because have you ever been in a conversation, maybe an argument, with someone, halfway through the argument, you realize you're wrong? And what did you do anyways? You just kept on arguing, didn't you? Like, I'm going to my death grave, on this one. I know I'm wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and argue for it. All right? It's probably like 90% of your conversations with your parents. You're going to argue with them no matter what. And why do we do that? Pride, right? I mean, we don't like to be shown that we're wrong, do we? Right? So don't tell them they're wrong. Don't show them why they're wrong. Ask a question so they can discover they're wrong. And that's actually what Santa Claus did with Deepak Chopra in that video at the beginning. Instead of saying, well, Deepak, your claim that all belief is a cover-up for insecurity is a belief that must cover up for insecurity and therefore self-refuting. And Deepak goes, no, it's not. And he goes, yes, it is. Seriously, that's not going to really help. He asked a question. Do you believe that? And when he said yes, his belief that beliefs are cover-up for insecurity is a cover-up for insecurity. But he doesn't really want to think that, does he? And everyone realizes it, except for maybe Deepak. If you saw the video, he's like, what's going on? A little slow on the take there. Or just, you do what you got to do when you're showing you're wrong. All right, so that's what you do. I like this one when people say, truth doesn't exist. Right? Now I can say, well, that's self-refuting, and because if it's true, then it's false. And if it's false, then it's false, But most people are just not going to be like, thank you for showing, What could you ask instead if someone says truth doesn't exist? Is that true? And the moment, can you clear this up for me? If it's true that truth doesn't exist, is that true? Right? And of course, then they start thinking through it. And as they begin to answer it, if I say, yes, it's true, then it's false. And if I say, no, it's not true, then it's false. And then, the gears in the head start grinding together. Like, oh my gosh, truth actually exists. And it's true. Truth actually does exist. Doesn't mean we're going to find it all. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy to find, and probably not going to find most of it, for that matter. But truth obviously does exist. And instead of showing them that saying truth doesn't exist is self-refuting, then ask them a question. Is that true? And I'll give one example, right? Where I had an experience several years ago where I strung all three questions together successfully, which is very rare for me. Success, not questions, success is very rare. All right, so I had a student, this was 2014, and I know the date, which will become evident as the story unfolds. Is in 2014, I'm teaching at Presswood Christian Academy, very evangelical Christian school, and the student came up to me at the beginning of the year and said, Mr. Lee, they call me Mr. Lee, and I said, yes, and he says, I think we ought to legalize same-sex marriage. And I'm like, Well, didn't know I was going to have to defend traditional marriage at an evangelical Christian school, but who knows, And in 2014, as you can tell for now from the date, 2015 was the Obergefell decision. I mean, in 2014, I didn't have any, skin in the game. I don't know if that's the best word the way to describe this situation. I'm a happily married man to a gorgeous wife. Love you, Angela. All right. So, I mean, she's gorgeous, beautiful. I did not have any interest in that. I'm not an ethics teacher. I taught ethics, at a junior college for a couple of years because I had to have money, so I could make up some, rules, but I just did not know that whole field, wasn't my interest. And I'm like, oh, what do I do with this, And I just said, well, I'll just ask questions. Well, what do you mean by that? Now, retrospectively, probably not the best question to ask. So, well, when two same-sex individuals love each other, they want to come to, okay, I think I understand. I don't need a graphic description of what's going on here. I can, put it together myself. So, all right. Sometimes entertain myself, thanks. All right, so she explained it to me. And so that was the first question. What do you mean by it? What's the second question? How did you come back? Why do you think same-sex individuals should have the right to get married in our country? And this was the reasoning the student gave. It's what you probably have heard called the love wins argument. You ever heard the phrase love wins? And this is how the student brought it to me. The student said, well, you love your wife, don't you? I go, yes, I do. And you had the right to marry her because you loved her. I said, yeah. That's all same-sex marriage individuals want that love each other. The same right that was given to you. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty reasonable. I mean, if love gives the person a right to get married, then why wouldn't they be given the right to get married? But then I saw a flaw in the reasoning. And some of you might already see it right now. And instead of stating what the flaw was, I got to put it in a question, right? To use the Columbo tactic. And I said, well, clear this up for me. If love gives the person a right to get married, and I love my son, in fact, I mean, I do. I love my son. In fact, I love my grandmother. Do I have a right to marry my grandmother? What if I love an 8-year-old? I mean, who are you to say age, is going to be the wall of love? I mean, seriously, I mean, that's where we're going in our society, by the way. It's like, I mean, but if I do, and that 8-year-old loves me, why can't we get married? What if I love my dog, which I don't? I hate my dog. But if I love my dog, do I have a right to marry my dog? Why does it have to be between persons? Why are you being so speciesistic? In fact, the Bible commands me to love my, well, I was going with myself. I hate my enemy. I don't know what your Bible you're reading. I read it once. It's pretty good. So anyways, I was going to love yourself, but nah, enemy. Okay, drawing the line there. Maybe I'm not so evangelical. All right, but it does say to love yourself. Do I now have a right to marry myself? And of course, the student looked at me and said, you're just sick. I said, well, ain't my argument. I'm just asking questions, And the flaw was, love has nothing to do with it. Love has nothing to do with the right to get married. Now, I don't know what is necessary for the right to get married. I do, but I was able to navigate the conversation, I think fairly successfully, by asking questions. Right? And because seriously, if love is what is required to get married, then half the marriages that ever have existed are illegitimate because they're what? Huh? No. Half the marriages that ever have come into being have been arranged, right? They don't even know each other, much less love each other, right? But if love is what people give the right to get married, then arranged marriages are illegitimate because they don't even know each other, which interestingly, arranged marriage actually are more successful statistically than unarranged marriages, interestingly enough. But anyways, that's a different issue. All right, so anyways, that's the process that we worked through in the Columbo tactic, asking carefully selected questions. What do you mean by that? How did you come to that conclusion? And can you clear this up for me when you see the flaw? If you don't see the flaw, you're not. All right, so you don't have to know everything to be bold. You can just ask what a person believes by, what do you mean by that? What to make them defend their view? How did you come to that conclusion? And to uncover the flaw, you begin with the question, can you clear this up for me with the question? Now, there is a certain ploy that's called the professor's ploy, right? That professors love doing. And since this is a college institution, you probably have professors, and professors are proficient at what's called the professor's ploy. And I'll let Greg Kokel talk about the professor's ploy because I mean, it's his, you know, so I mean, he's the one who came up with it. Might as well give him credit. This is where a lot of the information I got from is Tactics. I think it's probably one of the best books out there in apologetics. If you just had to read one, this is the way to go because you got to learn how to have discussions. Even if you know a lot of content, you could still really screw things up even with the content you have, right? Because, and like this is reasonable faith. You know, you probably heard of 1 Peter 3:15 says, you know, always be ready to give a reason for the hope that you have within. But then people stop there. And what's the next part of the verse? Anybody know? do it gentleness and respect. And you know what? The Columbo tactic can help you do that. That's how you'd be gentle and respectful, is what you do. You just ask questions and be authentic. Don't be manipulative. You can't ask questions and be manipulative, right? That can happen, you know, but get to know the person, right? I mean, I'll be honest. I think society would get along a lot better if we just ask questions of each other and just listen to each other out, you know, and especially in a very charged political environment or a very charged, you know, campus environment, you know, wherever we're at. You can always ask questions. That's all you really have to do is ask these kind of questions. What do you mean by that? How'd you come to that conclusion? And can you clear this up for me? So you can use the tactic to get out of the hot seat, take the pressure off by using the first two Columbo questions, and then close with let me think about that is what you can do. So remember, no need to hit a home run every time you get into conversation, all right? Whatever is defined as a home run of the situation, you know? But you can engage someone in conversation. You can be effective and bold, learning more about what their views are, which is interesting. I like knowing what other people think without being argumentative. You can have an argument without being argumentative. That's a possibility. Argumentative is just being disagreeable. An argument is giving reasons itself by asking just these few simple questions. And the nice thing about this tool, you don't even have to be a Christian to use it. You could use it in different ways. I mean, an atheist could use it. I mean, this is just the street epistemologist. I can't remember. Peter Boghossian, yeah. That's all he does. Yeah. He just asks questions. You know, that's all he's doing. He totally ripped off Greg Koukl is what he did, you know, with his street epistemology. But it's just asking questions. You could do it in any situation, you know, whatsoever. So it can be very, very effective. So any questions, comments? Anybody care? Yeah?
In your last example, you could have asked the question, what's love got to do with it?
Oh, yeah, with the song. Who was that? Whitney Houston? Was that Whitney Houston did that song? I think it was Whitney. What's love got to do with it? Yeah. What's love got to do with it? Yeah, absolutely. Well, all right. Well, I'll turn it back over to whoever, you know. Thanks for having me. Hopefully you learned a little bit and it was entertaining along the way. So thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Good to be in that mode sometimes.
So we can go and have some steak or shakes if you'd like to join us. That's at the one that's north of Bush, by the way. It's by Rose's Cafe, by the Walmart stands. Arguments over there.
It's on Court.
Yeah.
Court North and